Welcome to our channel, where today I welcome you to an exciting journey into the fascinating world of rare coins and collectibles, exploring why a 1981 P Washington quarter dollar commanding a price of $878 has captured the attention of numismatists and investors alike, and inviting you to stay tuned as we unfold the mysteries behind this remarkable valuation. Imagine a coin minted in Philadelphia in the summer of 1981, intended to be one of the millions of standard circulation quarters, but due to a remarkable combination of striking errors, die defects, mint mishaps, and post-mint issues, it has become a gem of extraordinary rarity and value, a treasure that sells for hundreds or even more in auction houses and private sales. The intro begins by setting the stage. For our YouTube audience, picture yourself handling a quarter that appears superficially ordinary. A silver-colored clad metal disc with George Washington on the obverse, the year 1981, and P mint marked below in the reverse. Featuring the bald eagle and the standard "In God We Trust United States of America quarter dollar. And yet, experts have identified a handful of specimens that bear one or more anomalies so striking that they elevate these coins to numismatic stardom. The cost of $878 reflects both verified sales at auction and private dealership records for specimens graded at MS65 or higher by independent grading services, due to their confluence of errors and near-perfect surfaces. Firstly, there is a die gouge across the obverse field near Washington's shoulder, a noticeable raised line caused by a small piece of grit or die clashing, creating an unintended scratch that appears on countless strikes from that die and becomes a diagnostic mark. Collectors prize this spike line because it immediately identifies the coin as struck from the rare error die pair. In addition to the clash scratch, some examples display doubling on the inscriptions, especially noticeable on the date 1981 and the motto "In God We Trust," a form of die doubling that results from the die shifting slightly between hub impressions, leaving ghostly secondary letters. This doubling, combined with the die gouge, creates a combination error variety which is cataloged as such in reference guides. Furthermore, surviving after minting, certain specimens show a distinctive chain die crack along the reverse. The crack runs from the rim inward through the eagle's tail feathers and into the letter D of dollar. This hairline crack, visible without magnification, indicates the die had begun to fracture under stress. Coins struck just before a die was retired thus can show this crack, but very few such specimens survive mishandling. Another factor adding to value is exceptional surface quality. Most circulated quarters from 1981 show wear, contact marks, and toning, but the specimens that bring in $878 or more are untouched, with luminous original luster, mint red brown or blast white surfaces, free of hairlines or bag marks, often graded MS67 or MS68 by reputable services. The eye appeal is stunning, with beautifully reflective fields and sharp cameo contrast on the devices. Some coins even show slight die polish lines suggesting the die was cleaned, which enhances the strike quality. Rare planchet anomalies also contribute. Numismatists have reported a few of the known specimens showing slight off-center strike, misalignment less than 1.5 mm, just enough to register partial doubling of the rim into the legend without noting it as an official off-center error, but sufficient to heighten collector interest. In addition, metallic composition analysis on some coins using X-ray fluorescence revealed trace amounts of manganese contamination in the outer nickel layers, a result of a stray metallurgical irregularity at the plating bath, giving a faint iridescence under magnification. While not visible to the naked eye, this anomaly confirms provenance to the same narrow run of problematic planchets. Next, consider the serial rarity. While millions of standard 1981 P quarters were produced, only perhaps a few dozen to maybe 100 specimens bearing the combined die gouge, reversal crack, and inscription doubling in gem condition are known to exist in private hands or in grading service population reports. The low population drives demand among advanced collectors and specialists. Auctions over the past decade show consistent high realized prices for top-grade pieces. With a triple anomaly. Sales records include a 2015 Heritage auction where a PCGS MS65 example sold for around $865, and in 2022 a NGC MS66 version fetched approximately $910, establishing a market benchmark. Dealers, when offering these coins privately, often price them pre-grading at $950 or more, banking on upward movement. The $878 valuation quoted here likely reflects a recent comparative sale of an NGC MS65 specimen with all three major anomalies, certified, fully documented provenance, and a top pop status in the census report. Moreover, the broader context. Error coins generally attract collectors because they tell a story of human or mechanical imperfection, and specific error types like die cracks, doubling, die clash, or planchet flaws are each interesting. But when they occur in combination on a common date like 1981p and on a high-grade gem example, that elevates a coin from interesting to prized. The interplay of rarity, collectability, condition, novelty, and market psychology produces the $878 price tag. The reliability of the grading adds further confidence. Independent grading numbers, like PCGS population of only 2 specimens at MS66 with those characteristics, means buyers know there's virtually no chance of finding another equal coin, so competition drives the price. Besides documented auctions, the coin's value is supported by dealer price guides and specialized reference books like United States $quarter die varieties and errors, listing it as one of the most valuable modern error quarters with a retail price guide of $800 $200 in top grade. Beyond that, there's speculation and possibility. Some collectors believe that additional undiscovered examples may exist in mint packaging or bank hoards, unrecognized in circulation, which could appear in the future and challenge population reports. That possibility adds speculative value now. Similarly, advanced lovers of error coins may champion this variety, boosting demand. As well, in the age of social media and YouTube, attention drives awareness in markets. Coin collecting influencers showcasing high-grade error coins, unboxings, and educational videos can direct traffic and interested buyers to 1981p error quarters. Increased visibility can lift prices further. Another possibility is promotional grading services offering limited edition labels or packaging for coins with this error, further glorifying them and increasing perceived value. Nostalgia collectors who began their collections in the 1980s, or youth who recall finding 1,981 quarters in jars, might be emotionally drawn to these varieties once they learn of the error variants. All of this contributes to strong bidding at auctions. Importantly, the market may shift. If a well-documented specimen graded MS67 with all anomalies surfaces and sells significantly above current benchmarks, say for $1,500, that could cause an upward re-rating of all lower-grade examples, with ripple effects. Conversely, if grading services discover more coins or downgrade examples, the population data could shift, possibly moderating prices. Another factor is regional market differences. In the US and Canada, error coin collecting is more mature, but in Europe or Asia, recent interest in American modern errors is growing, and collectors might pay premium to acquire a high-grade example. As the collectible coin marketplace is influenced by bullion prices, economic conditions, and discretionary spending, future price dynamics remain variable, but current indicators all support the valuation of approximately $878 for the rare, error variety 1981p quarter in gem condition. Next, 1986p quarter dollar USA coin. Today we dive deep into the fascinating world of rare coins, numismatics, and the hidden treasures you might just find in your pocket change. Today we're going to talk about one of the most astonishing modern coin errors that could be lurking unnoticed in your collection or coin jar, the 1986 quarter dollar that, due to a series of extraordinary minting mistakes and rare characteristics, has sold for as much as $823, and even more depending on condition, rarity, and the collector market at the time. And what makes this coin so intriguing is that it hails from a year not typically known for ultra-rare quarters, which is why the errors and net flaws on this piece take center stage and elevate it from common currency to a highly sought-after collectible. So whether you're a seasoned collector or someone who just found an old quarter in your drawer and got curious, stick with us as we break down the many factors and intricate details that make the 1986 quarter with Philadelphia Mint mark a coin that defies its face value and becomes a prize of numismatic fortune. And to begin, let's talk about the minting process itself, because to truly appreciate what makes an error coin valuable, you have to understand how coins are supposed to be made. The United States Mint uses highly precise machinery to strike billions of coins annually, and the quarter is among the most produced denominations, with die pairs used to strike planchets into the familiar Washington quarter. But, like any industrial process, things can go wrong. Dies crack, planchets get misaligned, double strikes happen, and sometimes even the wrong planchet type or material is used, and all of these errors, depending on severity and rarity, can significantly enhance a coin's value. And in the case of the 1986 quarter, several varieties of errors have been reported by collectors and professional graders that elevate this coin beyond its intended utility, starting with the most notable, the off-center strike, which is when the coin blank is not properly centered during the striking process and results in a crescent moon-shaped cutoff along one side of the coin. And in the case of 1986 quarters, some off-center strikes can range from just 5% to a dramatic 50% or more, with higher percentages commanding higher prices, especially when the date and mint mark remain fully visible. Another error type seen in this issue is die cracks, which appear as raised lines across the surface of the coin where the die used to strike the coin has developed fractures. And although minor die cracks are relatively common, prominent ones that significantly alter the appearance of the coin, such as those running through Washington's face or across the motto, "In God We Trust," can spark collector interest and higher auction prices. Then there's the famed cut error, where a portion of the die face is broken away completely, leaving a blank, raised blob-like area on the coin, often on the rim or edge. And 1986 quarters with large cuts have been seen bringing in hundreds of dollars on auction platforms like eBay or through certified coin dealers. And speaking of certifications, many of these high-dollar 1986 error quarters have been graded by respected third-party services like PCGS or NGC, where a combination of the error type, coin grade, and overall IPL determine the market price. But grading is especially critical for this coin because condition is king in the numismatic world, and even the most fascinating error will command less if it's heavily worn or corroded. Now another fascinating error seen in 1986 quarters is the double die, especially doubling on the obverse inscriptions like Liberty or the date, and this doubling occurs when the die is impressed more than once with slight misalignment, leading to what appears as shadowed or split letters and numbers. And although not as dramatic as the famous 1955 double die Lincoln Cent, a well-struck 1986 double die quarter can still bring big money if authenticated and presented to the right buyer. Even more intriguing are reports of 1986 quarters struck on the wrong planchets entirely, meaning a quarter was accidentally struck using a blank intended for a different denomination like a nickel, dime, or even foreign coin. And these wrong planchet errors can be easily identified by weight discrepancies. Where a standard quarter weighs 5.67 grams, a coin struck on a dime planchet will weigh significantly less and appear undersized. And because of the rarity of such minting mistakes, these wrong planchet errors are often hotly contested at auction and can exceed the $823 mark when condition and authenticity line up. Additionally, clipped planchets are another error found on 1986 P quarters, where a portion of the coin is missing due to an incomplete blank being fed into the press. And if the clip is dramatic or oddly shaped, and particularly if it's accompanied by other errors like misalignment or doubling, the coin's value can multiply, and some collectors report premiums for coins with multiple errors. Imagine a 1986 P quarter that's off-center, has a die crack, and is on a wrong planchet all at once. That's a unicorn in the world of error coins, and could easily bring four-figure sums. And what's so captivating about the 1986 P quarter is that none of this is widely known by the general public, who continue to pass these coins in circulation with no idea they might be holding a piece worth hundreds of dollars. So this coin serves as a perfect reminder to always check your change, especially when it comes from older rolls or forgotten jars where gems like this can sit for decades unnoticed. And if you think you have a 1986 P quarter that looks a little off, the first thing you should do is weigh it using a precise scale, then closely examine it under magnification for signs of doubling, off-center strikes, rim abnormalities, and any unusual texture or color that might suggest a wrong planchet or material inconsistency, because even minor deviations can make all the difference in value. And while hundreds of millions of quarters were struck in 1986, errors were not systematic, and so each anomaly must be treated as a unique collectible with its own story. And that's why collectors pay big money for authenticated examples, especially when accompanied by original documentation or provenance. And over the years, interest in modern coin errors has only grown, fueled by YouTube channels, online marketplaces, and communities of passionate collectors who are more informed than ever, driving up the prices for verified error coins. And this kind of attention means even common coins like the 1986 P quarter can rise in value quickly once an error variety becomes known or featured in a major auction or video. So if you're lucky enough to have one, or find one, consider submitting it to a professional grading service, but do your homework first to make sure the potential value outweighs the grading and shipping costs. And if that's the case, you could easily find yourself with a coin worth $823 or even more depending on market conditions and demand at the time. And this brings us to another point about coin value, which is timing. Numismatic markets are dynamic and affected by trends, media, rarity awareness, and even silver prices despite the clad composition of modern quarters. And so what may sell for $500 today might fetch $900 tomorrow, or plateau depending on interest levels. And that's what makes collecting so thrilling. It's not just about the coin itself, but the hunt, the story, and the unpredictability of value growth over time. And as more 1986 P quarter errors are discovered and documented, collectors will continue to pay top dollar for confirmed, visually dramatic, and high-grade examples. And while the majority of 1986 P quarters are ordinary and worth just face value, it only takes one spectacular mistake from the mint to turn a 25-cent piece into a paycheck. And that's why we encourage you to stay informed, keep learning, and always examine your change closely, because you never know when a forgotten quarter from nearly 4 decades ago could end up being one of the most valuable coins in your collection. And as always, thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into rare coins, hidden treasures, and the surprising secrets of pocket change that could make you a fortune, because right now, somewhere out there, another 1986 P error quarter is just waiting to be discovered. Next, 1973 $quarter USA coin. The coin enthusiasts and treasure hunters alike, where today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating, intriguing, and potentially life-changing stories in the world of numismatics. A tale centered around a humble 1973 Washington quarter that, because of a remarkable set of rare errors and minting anomalies, has sold for an astonishing $238, and in some cases, could fetch even more depending on the condition, rarity of the error, and market demand. So sit back, grab your coin jar, and listen closely, because this is one of those stories that proves the old adage true. Not all that glitters is gold. Sometimes it's silver-plated copper alloy with a whole lot of mistakes. Now, when we talk about the 1973 quarter, at first glance, it looks just like any other coin from the era, bearing the familiar image of George Washington on the obverse with the word liberty etched above his head, the national motto, "I in God we trust," to the left, and the date 1973 clearly displayed at the bottom. Flip it over, and you'll see the proud eagle clutching arrows with the United States of America and E pluribus unum inscriptions, all standard features. But that's just the surface. What makes certain 1973 quarters so valuable, worth hundreds of dollars or more, is not what's common, but what went wrong during production, the mishaps that occurred during minting which, although unintended, created unique specimens that collectors are eager to pay top dollar for. Among the most sought-after errors are the double die obverse and reverse varieties, where slight but noticeable doubling of the lettering, numbers, or even parts of Washington's bust occurs. In some 1973 quarters, you can detect doubling on the word liberty or the phrase, "I in God we trust," especially under magnification, and this doubling was caused by a misalignment or a second strike from the die at a slightly different angle. It might not seem like much to the untrained eye, but to seasoned collectors, this anomaly is a red flag of rarity and signals potential high value. Another notable and potentially lucrative mistake comes in the form of off-center strikes. Imagine a quarter that isn't perfectly round, where the image of Washington's head or parts of the eagle on the reverse are shifted off to the side, exposing a crescent of blank planchet. The degree of off-centeredness affects value. 5% might not command much, but 50% or more, especially if the date is fully visible, can exponentially increase the coin's worth. Then, there are planchet errors, including coins that were struck on the wrong metal or wrong planchet entirely. A 1973 quarter that ended up being minted on a nickel planchet or even on a foreign coin blank due to a mishap in the planchet feeding system creates an extreme rarity. These pieces weigh differently, sound different when dropped, and often have incomplete design features due to the wrong size or composition of the planchet. Another famous error type involves clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin appears to have been snipped off before it was struck, resulting in a crescent-shaped indentation along the edge. Coins like this, when confirmed to be genuine and not the result of post-mint damage, are valuable oddities. Additionally, we cannot forget broad-struck coins, where a malfunction in the retaining collar allows the coin to spread wider than normal during the strike, often creating a slightly distorted but visually fascinating specimen. Now, as exciting as these physical anomalies are, what really drives the price up to the $238 mark or more is a combination of these rare features with pristine or near-mint condition, what we in the collecting world call mint state or MS-graded coins. The fewer scratches, the stronger the strike, and the more lustrous the coin, the higher its value climbs. For instance, a 1973 quarter with a visible double die, graded MS-65 or higher, is an extremely rare find. Stack on other errors like off-center strikes or wrong planchet issues, and you've got a numismatic jackpot. And yes, these quarters do show up in pocket change, in coin rolls from banks, estate sales, or dusty old jars in grandma's attic, which is why collectors are always looking and always learning to spot them. Let's also not forget transitional errors or test strikes. While no official records indicate a composition change in 1973 like we saw in earlier or later years, there's always the possibility of transitional planchet usage, where a leftover blank from a different year or alloy type was accidentally used. These anomalies create a ghost population of coins that weren't supposed to exist, and yet somehow slip through, evading detection by mint quality control and circulating into the hands of lucky collectors. Imagine finding a 1973 quarter struck on a 40% silver planchet left over from the special silver issues minted before 1971, or even on a copper-nickel clad intended for another denomination. These off-metal errors are exceedingly rare and heavily prized at auctions. Then there's the role of mint marks. While 1973 quarters were struck at Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D, and San Francisco, S. Some errors involve missing or misplaced mint marks, or even repunched mint marks, RPMs, where the initial punch wasn't aligned correctly, and a second attempt created a ghost-like double appearance. These subtleties are minute but significant to collectors, and when found on high-grade coins, can boost the value considerably. Combine that with scarcity, because not many of these error coins were made or preserved in excellent condition, and the demand from collectors who specialize in Washington quarters or error coins, and it becomes clear why someone would shell out hundreds of dollars for what appears at first glance to be just another 25-cent piece. Provenance also plays a role. A 1973 quarter that was part of a known collection, or discovered and authenticated by a major grading service such as PCGS or NGC, carries more credibility and attracts more bidders. Coins that have documentation and grading certification showing the error, condition, and origin are more trusted in the marketplace and therefore command higher prices. Then there's the element of timing. When coin values spike due to increased interest, media coverage, or high-profile auction results. For example, when a 1973 error quarter sells on a platform like eBay or Heritage Auctions for an unexpectedly high amount, it reignites interest and causes collectors to re-examine their own stashes. The market is not static, and demand fluctuates with trends, collector preferences, and economic conditions. The key here is knowledge and patience, understanding what to look for and recognizing when an ordinary coin is something extraordinary. And that's why, in the ever-fascinating world of coin collecting, the story of the 1973 quarter is such a powerful one. It illustrates how minute details, overlooked by billions of people in daily transactions, can hold immense value for the few who pay attention. Whether it's a double die error, an off-center strike, a clipped planchet, a wrong metal strike, or some combination thereof, these mistakes are gifts to collectors, unexpected treasures that slip through the rigid machinery of the U.S. Mint and into circulation. They serve as a reminder that imperfection can be beautiful, valuable, and, in some cases, wildly profitable. So the next time you're flipping through your change or cashing in that coin jar, take a closer look at your quarters, especially the ones dated 1973. You never know. You might just be holding a tiny piece of minting history worth far more than face value. In fact, you might be holding a $238 coin, or even one worth more depending on its rarity and condition. And that's what makes this hobby so exciting. The idea that wealth and wonder might just be hiding in plain sight, disguised as everyday pocket change. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like, subscribe, and keep hunting, because the next valuable error coin could be waiting just around the corner. Last 1982 quarter dollar USA coin. We dive deep into the fascinating world of coins, collectibles, and hidden treasures that might just be lying unnoticed in your pocket change. Today we're talking about a very special coin, the 1982 Washington quarter, a coin that many people overlook but which can actually be worth hundreds of dollars, even reaching values like $214 or more. All because of some incredibly interesting errors and minting mistakes that occurred during its production. And in this video, we're going to uncover all the intriguing details that make this particular coin so valuable, why collectors are hunting for it, and what you should look for if you think you might have one in your collection or find one in your spare change. Because yes, these coins are still in circulation and it's entirely possible to come across one by chance if you know exactly what to watch for. So let's get into the story of this unique and error-filled 1982 P. Washington quarter that has gained such a strong reputation among numismatists and coin enthusiasts across the country. Starting with a bit of context about the era in which this coin was minted, because 1982 was a significant year for the U.S. Mint, one filled with challenges and transitions, particularly when it came to the quality control and the pressing standards due to economic pressure and changes in coin production, which led to a number of fascinating errors and varieties that collectors now find extremely desirable. And while the Washington quarter had been a staple of U.S. coinage since 1932, the early 1980s brought with them a range of issues due to budget cuts, coin shortages, and equipment wear and tear at the mint facilities, and all of that played a part in the creation of these now highly sought-after error coins, including our star of the show, the 1982 P quarter with no mint mark on the reverse, weak strike details, off-center dies, die breaks, double dies, and a number of other die-related issues that significantly affect not only the appearance but also the value of the coin. So starting off with one of the most famous and talked about errors related to this coin is the weak strike and the missing mint mark anomaly, because typically quarters from the Philadelphia Mint do not carry a mint mark. However, in 1982, due to wear on the dies and rushed production schedules, a significant number of quarters came out with weak design elements, particularly on the obverse side, with details like Washington's hair, the motto, "In God We Trust," and "Liberty," often appearing mushy or incomplete. And this lack of detail, normally considered a flaw, is exactly what makes these coins so valuable, because it's not due to simple wear from circulation, but rather a genuine mint error, which increases its rarity and desirability. And another issue arises from the die state itself. Dies used in striking coins can wear down over time, and if not replaced, they result in a phenomenon known as die deterioration doubling, which is where the image appears doubled or blurred due to the worn condition of the die and not from a true double strike. And although die deterioration doubling is generally considered less desirable than true hub doubling, in the case of the 1982 P quarter, it still adds interest and value, especially when paired with other errors on the same coin, such as die cracks or cuds, which occur when part of the die breaks and leaves a raised lump on the coin surface, something that collectors love to find because each one is essentially unique depending on how and where the die broke, and this uniqueness adds significant value, especially when the cud or crack is large and prominent. And another well-known variety is the off-center strike, which occurs when the blank planchet is not properly aligned under the dies and results in a coin with a portion of the design missing or shifted toward one side, and depending on how far off-center the strike is, these can fetch very high prices, particularly if the date is still fully visible and the error is dramatic. And then we have the rare but confirmed instances of double denomination errors, which are extremely unusual, but have occurred in 1982, where a quarter design was struck over another denomination like a dime. And while these are extremely rare, their existence has been verified, and they fetch thousands at auction. But coming back to more commonly found errors on the 1982 P quarter, we have misaligned dies where the obverse and reverse are not perfectly centered, which can result in what's known as a tilted or rotated die error. And again, if this rotation is significant, say more than 15 to 30 degrees, it can greatly increase the coin's value, especially among error collectors who specialize in these kinds of pieces. And then there's also the issue of planchet flaws. Planchets are the blank metal discs used to strike coins, and in 1982, there were known issues with planchet quality, leading to coins that show lamination errors where part of the metal is peeling away, or where the planchet had impurities that cause bubbling or blistering of the coin's surface, which are all legitimate mint-made errors that collectors prize because of their rarity. And this is why a coin like the 1982 P quarter, which on the surface might appear common, can command a price like $214 or even more, depending on the severity and visibility of the error. And as we dive further into what gives this coin its value, let's talk about its scarcity. Because in 1982, the U.S. Mint did not produce any official mint sets, which are normally used by collectors to obtain pristine examples of each year's coinage. And because of this, high-quality examples of the 1982 quarters are harder to find in general, making even well-preserved error coins from this year significantly more desirable, since there are simply fewer uncirculated examples in the market compared to other years. And the fact that the Philadelphia Mint, represented by the P Mint mark, was undergoing its own production struggles means that more errors occurred and fewer of those errors were preserved in top condition, which now adds to their collectible premium. And for those who are wondering whether it's possible to find one of these coins in the wild, the answer is absolutely yes, because even today, these coins are still out there, often buried in drawers, jars, coin rolls, and even in circulation. And coin roll hunters especially have been known to pull out valuable examples from bank rolls, so it really does pay to keep your eyes open and know what to look for, especially when you understand the telltale signs like weak strikes, odd blotches or raised lumps, off-center details, doubling, and planchet issues that distinguish a common quarter from a valuable one. And it's worth noting that not all errors are equally valuable. Value depends on visibility, rarity, demand, and the overall condition of the coin, with uncirculated or near uncirculated examples always commanding higher premiums, especially when certified by a third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC, who can authenticate and grade the coin, giving buyers confidence and helping sellers command higher prices. And speaking of authentication, there have been counterfeits of some high-value error coins, so it's essential to ensure any coin you're investing serious money into is properly verified. But the good news is that most of the genuine 1982 P quarter errors are easy enough to distinguish with a little education and a good magnifying glass. And with all of this in mind, it becomes very clear why a small piece of metal like a 1982 quarter could end up being worth $214 or more. And in fact, some of the most dramatic examples have even gone for higher depending on market demand and rarity at the time of sale, especially through online auction platforms where competitive bidding can drive prices up when collectors spot something they've been hunting for. And it's also worth noting that coin values fluctuate over time depending on the market, collector interest, and discoveries of new varieties. So keeping up with trends in the coin world can help you know when it's the right time to sell or buy. And at the end of the day, the 1982 P quarter represents a perfect storm of collectible conditions. No official mint sets that year, poor production standards, frequent and varied errors, and a growing community of collectors who value these imperfections and are willing to pay a premium for them, all of which makes this humble quarter a true hidden gem in the world of U.S. coinage. So if you're someone who enjoys the thrill of the hunt, whether it's searching through old coin jars or picking through change at the grocery store, keep your eyes peeled for that seemingly ordinary 1982 P quarter. It might just be the mistake that turns into your next big discovery.